Welcome back to Real Shit, where we like to talk real shit all day, every day, all for the love of movies. I am Joe, and today I'm here to review the new Spike Lee joint on Netflix, The Five Bloods. Before I get into it, though, please like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. Any little bit of feedback or support would be greatly appreciated. Without further ado, I'm going to get right into it because this is the first review I've done in quite some time for a brand new movie, so I'm honestly kind of excited. I feel a little rusty because I haven't exactly reviewed anything in a little bit. I've been doing mostly reactions to news items for the past couple of weeks, but in all honesty, I'm just going to put it right out there. I have what would be considered a complicated relationship with Spike Lee movies. I'm not his biggest fan as far as the content that he puts out. I do like some of the things he's put out in the past. Obviously, I think Malcolm X is probably his best movie. I also enjoyed He Got Game. Common denominator there being Denzel, and I'll get into more of that in a minute. I thought Black Klansman was pretty good, but a little bit overhyped as far as how people viewed it, and that seems to be the case with most of Spike's movies. I think a lot of his movies get a lot of attention just because of the subject matter, and that's one of the reasons why I'm not as into him, and it's that he comes off almost like a one-trick pony. Like everything that he does has to deal with race or politics or both, and it gets stale to me. It makes me wonder why he isn't willing to step out of his comfort zone and do something a little bit different. Now, he attacks it in a different way in this movie, with it being a war movie of sorts that is still looking at racial issues. But in my personal opinion, Spike sometimes tries too hard to be the smartest guy in the room with his racial subject matter. He always feels like he's kind of looking for attention or validation of some kind and trying to teach everyone some kind of culturally significant point in his movies. And while it may work in some instances, I think sometimes it may fall on deaf ears because if that's all you do, like, I think people are going to start to tune that out in some aspects because it's like they don't necessarily always want to be preached to when they're going to watch a movie. Once in a while, it's fine, but if it's every movie that you do, sometimes that could get old really quickly. Now, he has made movies in the past that aren't really all that preachy, like Inside Man, I know is one of them. But so I'm not saying everything he does, but a lot of things he does has that feel to it. His goal in this was basically to tell the story of Black Vietnam War veterans, a topic that I would think would offer a lot of deep subject matter, and it's largely been untapped. Like, it's not really a story that's been told up until this point. The reality of it is that this movie feels a lot more shallow than it should. It's clearly supposed to be deeper, but I think maybe the execution is a little bit off or something. Like, something felt off about this movie the whole time I was watching it. I can't really put my finger on it, but I'm going to try to because, that's why I'm here. But it just wasn't that interesting to me. I don't feel like I learned anything while watching it, which obviously was his ultimate goal, was to tell us something we didn't already know, but I didn't get any of that out of this movie. Most of the characters, in my personal opinion, are pretty one note and unmemorable. Spike's movies are usually made better when he has great actors working with him. Denzel would be a perfect example of that. I think a lot of Denzel's great performances have been in Spike Lee movies, and I also think those performances elevated Spike Lee's material to another level. But then you have a movie like this where Chadwick Boseman's character, for instance, it's a supporting character and he's not in all of the movie. He's kind of like a side character, so you see him here and there, but his performance feels very overzealous. Just again, something felt off about it. It's almost like the part was written for a younger version of Denzel, but obviously Denzel's an older man now, so it wouldn't have worked, I guess. But I feel like if Denzel was in this, or young Denzel was in this part, he would have elevated the material and it would have been better. Like, there's this monologue that Chadwick Boseman gives, and it's right after when they're explaining what's going on with the gold, and it feels like a Denzel monologue, like it should have been, but it's delivered in a way that is just not as well done as if Denzel would have did it. You understand what I'm saying? So I had a little issue there with that character specifically. Delroy Lindo, who is getting most of the praise for this movie, and rightfully so. I think he definitely has the best performance in the whole movie. I've always enjoyed him as an actor, and I kind of always wish that he would do more, so it's kind of nice to see him back. One of the interesting things that they do with his character is I feel like this is probably one of the more realistic portrayals of PTSD that I've seen in a movie, and probably ever, maybe. I don't know. Like, it's done in a much more subtle way than it's usually handled in movies. And I really enjoyed the way his performance kind of showcased what actual PTSD might be like. PTSD might be like. He does ultimately crack later on in the movie too, and that offers some more highlights as far as his performance. And there's a big reveal towards the end of the movie that kind of explains why he is the way he is and why he's so haunted by what happened in Vietnam. And I won't give that away here because it's not really necessary for this review, but I will say it makes sense, and I did enjoy that little twist in the movie, and it did make sense, and it definitely explained his character a little bit further. So that's definitely a good a highlight of the movie for sure. He definitely carries the movie, in my personal opinion. He's the best part of it by far. It references other movies quite a bit, and one in particular that kind of made me raise my ears and when it referenced Rambo. And it basically, what he's trying to say is that real heroes don't look like Rambo. It's people like the people that are in this movie that were actually the actual heroes of Vietnam. And again, it comes off like it's a little bit preachy. Like, we know that real people don't look like Rambo. We know that Vietnam vets didn't look like Rambo, but that's why it's called entertainment. Entertainment usually embellishes the facts a little bit. They make it more cinematic, more entertaining, and that's why we go to the movies, to see a larger than life version of reality, basically. And it feels a little bit like he's taking shots at that a little bit, because we're not giving respect to actual Vietnam veterans. And again, it just comes off a little bit preachy. And I think what I notice most about it is that cinematic excitement, or that extra level that makes me attracted to those types of movies like Rambo. That's what Spike Lee's movies are missing, in my personal opinion. So it's interesting that he brought that up in this movie. But to me, he's missing that element of his movie, that over-the-top cinematic element to his movies, because it's just not, it doesn't have a lot of rewatchability, in my personal opinion, a lot of his movies. And it's for that reason. Like, it's just missing that extra element, I guess you could say. It feels like it's just missing that distinctive cinematic element that every director has. You know, when you're watching a movie from any director, whether it be Tarantino or Scorsese or David Fincher or Spielberg, whatever the case may be, you can tell you're watching a movie from one of them. I don't know that you necessarily have a distinctive style for Spike Lee. He doesn't do anything that makes specifically this movie a memorable experience. He doesn't do anything that kind of captures your eye and kind of encapsulates you and kind of engrosses you and makes you want to rewatch the movie and see, you know, what more you can get out of it. At least not me. I mean, maybe some other people will. This is just my opinion, of course, but it's definitely missing that distinctive cinematic element. About halfway through the movie, I finally felt something, and this is going more into the positives, but when they find the remains of their the fifth member of their team that disappeared, you really get a sense of their brotherhood, and you really feel for them. It's a moment that anyone can relate to who has ever known or been related to or loved someone that has served, and you kind of really get a sense for their brotherhood. So that was a nice moment in the movie. There's also a tension-filled moment, like not long after that, after they find the gold, and it involves like a minefield. And this is probably, in my personal opinion, the best scene in the whole movie, because I actually felt genuine tension in this moment, which I didn't feel for most of the other movie. But it does feel like that moment is definitely one of the stronger scenes in the whole movie, and I think that is definitely the case, because like I said, a lot of the rest of the movie feels like it's missing something, but this one actually felt like it was elevated to a certain level, which was a relief, honestly, after watching halfway through the movie, an hour and a half of the movie, and finally getting a moment of genuine tension and a moment that actually feels cinematic. So it was nice to have that for sure. The climax of the movie, it's like this bloody shootout, and while it's cool and all, it feels like it's out of place in this movie, and I think that's like the general feeling that I get with this movie, is that a lot of stuff is kind of out of place. That's my take on the whole movie. It just feels like it's all over the place. It's like Spike Lee wasn't sure what he wanted to do or how he wanted to execute it. Or maybe he was sure and, yeah, like I said, just didn't know how to execute it, because it just feels like it's so all over the place and so uneven. It feels like a missed opportunity, to be quite honest, because it could have been something memorable had he taken the subject matter and told a better story with the surrounding elements that he had. And that's, I think, a missed opportunity in itself right there. And I think it's something that, in my personal opinion, that Spike struggles with quite frequently, and that's just executing his story and not putting the preachy element into his stories and just telling a good story. I think that is something that would benefit him if he could find a way to do that. But that's just my opinion. I mean, again, I'm not a huge fan of his movies to begin with, and you can take that for what it is. You can say I'm biased, whatever the case may be, but I'm just looking at it from a pure filmmaking standpoint, and it just wasn't that memorable of a movie to me. Now, I would love to know what everyone else thought about it. If you saw it, did you like it? Did you hate it? Do you agree with me? I'm more than willing to have a discussion with anyone down in the comments below if you feel like anything I said here was incorrect or maybe I missed something. But overall, I can't really recommend this movie because it just didn't do anything for me. But please let me know what you think in the comments down below. As always, please like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you next time right here on Real Shift. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later.